Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and welcome to This Week in WoW for the week of February 11th. As always, let's shout out the Patreon subscribers. We have Mario Casillas, Rep Pally Rocks, and Nick Rada. Thank you guys so much for that support. Now let's hop in and talk about what is going on in the game this week. Another very quiet week of news, by the way. We have the Lunar Festival ending today. We talked about this a little bit last week. There was actually a mount added to that, and I ended up finishing. I mentioned I had still had some more to do. I went around and finished collecting those coins, so hopefully if you saw that or you wanted to take part in that, you did so. We still have Love is in the Air going on as well. I am on the X whatever, the old Love rocket, and just got that like yesterday, I believe. So finally, after 20 years or whatever, I finally got this, whenever they put this in the game. We also have, so you can just for the record, to queue for that, you just go to Crown Chemical Co. on the group finder. I know there's a lot of people who do like high-end content that don't even engage with this stuff. Arena Skirmish event is going on as well for the PvPers out there. We still have Turbulent, Timeways, and Timewalking dungeon event going on. This is going to be Wrath Timewalking, if you're interested in doing that. And then our PvP brawl for this week is going to be Deepwind Dunk. So a lot of little stuff going on, but nothing major. And like I said, there wasn't a lot of major news this week as well. We had some music from the new raid come out, like not get leaked, but like get data mined, whatever. It's actually really cool. It's like big band music, I would say. And it's actually really neat. The whole theme of the raid is really cool. I mentioned last week I wanted to like maybe look at some of the boss fights. I did that. There was really nothing to make a video about or anything, but I went through and I watched a lot of the boss fights from the PTR testing. The raid is extremely thematic. Everything about it is cool. Now, ultimately, it'll be judged by if the boss fights are good or not, right? If a boss is way too easy, it's not fun. If a boss is way too hard, it's not fun. If there's a terrible weak aura that's needed, it's not fun. But everything looks really promising right now, and the theme of it is just amazing. The music's amazing, and it seems like it could be a really fun raid, which, you know, I don't know when the last time we had like a fun raid was, like our fun or silly raid, right? It's been a while since we maybe had something like that. Raids are a little bit more serious in WoW usually. Sometimes a dungeon might be silly, but usually the raids seem to be like a bit of a more serious tone, and this one's definitely on the more, you know, humorous or, you know, silly tone for this raid. But I think I'm very open to that. I think it'll be a little bit fun to be in there and take part in that. Another thing that happened was I was going to make a video on this, but they quickly changed it. They removed Dinars from the Raid Renown track. So if you don't know what the Raid Renown track is, just like your Renown here, so we have Council of Dolnogar, all that, there's going to be a Renown for the raid. It's only for the raid, and it only gives raid rewards. So like things that can help you in the raid, right? So it's completely self-contained thing. It also, actually, they did add a couple mounts to it. So you will have to do it on LFR or something if you are not a raider, if you want to get those mounts, I suppose. But you just get the renown from killing bosses and stuff like that. So you kill bosses in the raid, it gives you reputation essentially. You level up your raid renown. There was Dinars on the raid renown track, okay? So does it pull up the track? So the track is like this, right? It goes up to 25 on the normal ones. On like step 17 or something like that, there was Dinars. Dinars are the things that let you target pieces of gear that you really want, and they remove those. And so I was like, oh my gosh, they got rid of Dinars, and people were really looking forward to those. They're called like chips or something like that for this because it's a casino theme. And however, they did shortly after that put out a post clarifying that they removed it from the Renown track, but they're still going to be obtainable in a different way. So basically, they're just not going to be obtainable through the Renown, but they're going to be obtainable in some way that hasn't been released yet. I'll probably do a video on that when it's figured out like how you're going to get these Dinars, because they're a very popular item. They were at the end of Dragonflight. I believe they were at the end of Shadowlands as well, and you're able to target items with it, and it just helps people who are really unlucky. And it also just helps you maybe sometimes it stinks if you do finally get the item that you really want, but it's like 2 weeks before the next patch. It's kind of worthless. Even if you have a month or two, with that really high-end item, it can be more fun. And usually it's more than that with when they've released them before. So we'll see on the Dinars, we'll call them, but they're called chips in this one. We'll see with those when they come out. But yeah, they're removed off the renown track, but Blizzard put out a thing saying that they're just going to be somewhere else. And they took, they just moved some stuff around on the renown track essentially. I'm trying to think of any other news. This was a really extremely light news. There was very little tuning. There was a small bit of tuning, nothing for Ret, so we didn't really talk about that. I shouldn't say there's nothing for Ret. They did for Ret Paladin watchers here, which I know there are many of. Final Reckoning was buffed basically. So basically the initial damage of Final Reckoning was buffed by a pretty substantial amount. So will it be usable? I mean, it's going to be get closer and closer, and it's one of those things where, as I always say, it's like the more targets, the better it is. And some people, it's not always a viable thing to say, because in a lot of Mythic Plus, you're never pulling 20 targets. But if you do, Final Reckoning is already decent. It's still not great, but it's already decent. With this buff, I'm pretty sure on like 20 targets it'll be very good, right? It's getting the number of targets to where it becomes better, right? And so that's kind of where we are there. So with like unlimited AoE with tons of mobs, I think they want Final Reckoning to be good for that. So hopefully this buff goes all probably at least most of the way of getting there. We'll see on that, but that did come out. That wasn't like a major tuning, it was just basically one ability, but we'll see with that. And yeah, I don't think there was really much any news today, though. However, later today, I wouldn't be surprised if we get the patch date. I will do a video on that if that does happen. If the patch is at the end of February, it very well could come out today, the date. Why? They normally give about a 2-week notice. It's not always. They've only given a 1-week notice before, but usually they give about a 2-week notice of the patch date. Why? So people can get their Mythic Plus titles, really gear up to get their cutting edge or AOTC, or get their PvP titles. If I already said that, then the Mythic Plus title. And they really gear up for those things, so they get that, you have like a little bit of a notice, right, to do these things, or the last second people, or procrastinators, or whatever, or you're just waiting till the end of the season to do it, which is also fine. But yeah, so usually they give about a 2-week notice, so we could get the patch date today. That's no guarantee. It could be tomorrow as well. Sometimes they do it on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, so that could happen, but definitely no guarantee there. Other than that, we're looking for more tuning. As we are close, there was a build put out that would be a release build, and usually what that means, so what release build means, it's a build that could go live. They feel comfortable making that build go live. And usually from that point forward, you don't get any major changes out of that. It's just going to be some tuning here or there, so we'll see. Obviously, I'm always looking for ret tuning specifically, for my own personal interest and everything. So we will be, keeping an eye on that. If there are any more little tuning passes, usually there's a tuning pass every week or so. So there's been very light tuning. So hopefully that means that they're pretty comfortable with that, where everything's at. Some people are always worried about that, because generally you just like to see a lot of things changing, because that makes it look like they're busy doing work. And if you see nothing changing, you're worried that they're not working, I guess. That's not really the way I think about it, but I understand that people do think about it that way. So yeah, I wish I had more to talk about this week, but there really just wasn't much stuff going on other than the stuff that I mentioned. It's just some little stuff here and there. So yeah, TGP, I'll mention this really quick since I like to watch it. TGP was on this past weekend as well. I haven't been as invested this season in the TGP. I like it better when it's earlier in the season, I'll say, because I'm already done with these dungeons. I'm ready to move on to the next dungeons, and it's not as interesting to watch at the end of the season when I know these dungeons are going to be gone soon anyways. It's much better if they can get these into like the middle or the beginning, because first of all, it teaches you stuff how to do the dungeons better yourself, by watching like these people that practice them all the time do them. And then it's just not very valuable to me to watch. So as someone who normally enjoys TGP very much, that's the great push. I'm saying it like everybody knows what it is. That's it's like an esport, I guess, but they push keys as high as they can. There's a winner, whoever does the highest keys or whatever in the Mythic Plus. And yeah, normally I enjoyed a lot more, but this time not as much. So I believe probably this coming weekend will probably be the finals, I'd imagine, and if not the week after that. So I'll pay attention to it, but definitely not as hyped for it as I normally am. It's normally probably my favorite esport because it's the one that most translates to your actual gameplay. Because they're just doing the keys. Yeah, they try to do them a little bit fast, but they're mostly just trying to complete them, which is what most of us are trying to do: complete the keys on time, the average player. So yeah, that's something I wanted to point out. But again, wanted to point out that the hype is a little bit less for me, and I'm like a fan of it. Like I enjoy it, but the hype is a little bit less for me because of where it landed on coming at the very, very end of the season here. So that'll be it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody have a good one.